Welcome to History with Herodotus, where the tapestry of time comes alive through the stories of our past. Today, we embark on a journey to explore one of the most pivotal periods in modern history, the Great Depression. This cataclysmic event, which ravaged the global economy and left an indelible mark on humanity, is a testament to the complexities and frailties of our economic systems. As we delve into the world of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, we find ourselves in an era of unprecedented growth and industrialization. The United States, in particular, had emerged as a beacon of prosperity, with its economy fueled by innovation, immigration, and unbridled optimism. The Roaring Twenties were marked by a sense of euphoria as Americans danced the Charleston, listened to jazz, and invested in the stock market with reckless abandon. However, beneath the surface of this vibrant landscape, subtle yet ominous signs began to emerge. In the years following World War I, the global economy was struggling to find its footing. The war had left deep scars, with many countries burdened by massive debt and a significant loss of human capital. The Treaty of Versailles, intended to establish a new world order, instead imposed harsh penalties on Germany, crippling its economy and sowing the seeds of resentment. As the 1920s progressed, the world witnessed a surge in protectionism, with countries like the United States implementing tariffs and quotas to shield their domestic industries. One of the key players in this unfolding drama was the banking system, which had become increasingly complex and interconnected. The establishment of the Federal Reserve System in 1913 had provided a sense of stability, but it also created an environment in which banks could engage in reckless speculation, fueled by easy credit and lax regulations. As the stock market continued its upward trajectory, investors began to buy on margin, hoping to strike it rich. This precarious house of cards was further destabilized by the proliferation of investment trusts, which allowed individuals to pool their resources and invest in a wide range of assets. Meanwhile, in the agricultural heartland of America, a different story was unfolding. The rise of industrial farming had led to overproduction, causing crop prices to plummet. Farmers, who had taken on significant debt to purchase land and equipment, found themselves struggling to make ends meet. As their incomes dwindled, they were forced to reduce their spending, which in turn had a ripple effect throughout the economy. The stock market, fueled by speculation and greed, has reached dizzying heights. The global economy is increasingly interconnected, with trade and finance flowing across borders. And yet, despite these warning signs, few could have predicted the magnitude of the disaster that was to come. In the midst of this tumultuous landscape, figures like Herbert Hoover, the soon-to-be President of the United States, and Andrew Mellon, the Secretary of the Treasury, were beginning to take center stage. Their policies, shaped by a mix of ideological conviction and pragmatic calculation, would play a significant role in shaping the course of events. As the year 1929 drew to a close, the world teetered on the brink of economic disaster. On Black Tuesday, October 29, 1929, the stock market crashed, wiping out millions of dollars in investments and sending shockwaves through the global economy. The streets of Wall Street were chaotic, with panicked investors rushing to sell their stocks, while others stood frozen, unable to comprehend the magnitude of the disaster unfolding before them. The once mighty titans of industry, who had built their fortunes on speculation and greed, now found themselves facing financial ruin. In the aftermath of the crash, banks began to fail at an alarming rate, taking with them the life savings of millions of Americans. The banking system, which had been built on a foundation of shaky credit and lax regulations, was unable to withstand the shock of the stock market collapse. By 1930, over 1,300 banks had failed, leaving countless families without access to their money. As one desperate depositor lamented, "I worked hard for my money, and now it's gone, vanished into thin air." The sense of desperation was palpable as people struggled to make ends meet, and the very fabric of American society began to fray. As the months dragged on, the economic situation continued to deteriorate. Unemployment soared, with some estimates suggesting that over 25% of the workforce was idle by the end of 1930. The streets of major cities were filled with bread lines, soup kitchens, and makeshift shantytowns, as people struggled to survive in a world that seemed to have been turned upside down. In Chicago, for example, the city's relief agencies were overwhelmed by the sheer number of people seeking aid, with over 100,000 families applying for assistance in a single month. In 1931, the crisis deepened as a severe drought struck the Great Plains, decimating crops and livestock and pushing already struggling farmers to the brink of bankruptcy. The resulting Dust Bowl, which would come to be known as one of the worst environmental disasters in American history, forced thousands of families to abandon their homes and migrate to other parts of the country in search of work and a better life. As the great American writer John Steinbeck would later describe it, the dust was like a living thing. It seeped into every pore, it coated every surface, and it choked the life out of everything it touched. As the economic situation continued to worsen, President Herbert Hoover found himself under increasing pressure to take action. Despite his initial reluctance to intervene in the economy, Hoover eventually signed the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in June 1930, which raised tariffs on imported goods in an attempt to protect American industries. However, this move had the opposite effect, as other countries retaliated by raising their own tariffs, leading to a sharp decline in international trade and further exacerbating the economic crisis. As the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act failed to alleviate the economic crisis, President Hoover's popularity continued to decline, and he faced mounting criticism for his handling of the situation. In 1932, Franklin D. Roosevelt, the Democratic nominee, campaigned on a promise of bold action to address the Depression, and his message resonated with voters. Roosevelt's landslide victory in the presidential election marked a significant shift in the nation's approach to the crisis. Upon taking office, he implemented a series of measures known as the New Deal, which aimed to provide relief, recovery, and reform to those affected by the Depression. The New Deal programs, such as the Works Progress Administration, the Civilian Conservation Corps, and the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, put millions of Americans back to work, rebuilding infrastructure, conserving natural resources, and providing essential services. The Glass-Steagall Act, passed in 1933, separated commercial and investment banking, reducing the risk of future financial crises. The Securities Exchange Act of 1934 established the Securities and Exchange Commission, which regulated the stock market and protected investors. As Roosevelt said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." These measures helped to stabilize the economy, restore confidence, and pave the way for recovery. The Great Depression finally began to subside in the late 1930s as government spending, monetary policy, and gradual economic growth contributed to a slow but steady improvement. The United States' entry into World War II in 1941 provided a massive stimulus to the economy, as the federal government invested heavily in the war effort, creating new jobs, industries, and opportunities. The wartime economy helped to complete the recovery from the Depression, and by the mid-1940s, the nation had largely returned to prosperity. Today, the Great Depression is remembered as one of the most significant events of the 20th century, a testament to the fragility of economic systems and the importance of government intervention in times of crisis. As historian Arthur Schlesinger Jr. noted, the New Deal was not a mere improvisation, it was a coherent and sustained effort to remake American society. The legacy of the Depression can be seen in the continued influence of Keynesian economics, the development of social safety nets, and the establishment of regulatory frameworks to prevent similar crises. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.